record. So hello, hello, hello. So this is session 8 in our grief framework that we started at the beginning of the year actually. Um, yeah, it's just interesting to see sort of the different things that we have covered. And I think today what we're really trying to look at is this idea of how people deal with grief, but from the point of view of more how people sometimes deflect, deny, or distract themselves from experiencing the actual grief. And maybe hopefully in the middle of all that we get to touch on, you know, why that might not be helpful, why that does happen, and just to maybe come at it from an empathic point of view, really, and understand that. And I'll be hoping we can tap into some personal experience and see where that gets us. So I'm going to put the first piece in, read that, and then we'll take it from there. Right. So this is called The Great Escape. Running from that pain inside, denying, numbing, and avoiding. It has nowhere to go, trapped inside. Resistance futile, persistence the only gain. So many elaborate schemes, like a bad smell, it just won't go away. Its voice silenced, not acknowledged, lacking space to express it all. Can't run from it. The only way is through it. It will finally pass once it is done. The place where peace and freedom is found. I'm going to read that again, The Great Escape. Running from that pain inside, denying, numbing, and avoiding. It has nowhere to go, trapped inside. Resistance futile, persistence the only gain. So many elaborate schemes, like a bad smell, it just won't go away. Its voice silenced, not acknowledged, lacking space to express it all. Can't run from it. The only way is through it. It will finally pass once it is done. The place where peace and freedom is found.
Hmm.
What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that, when we have to go through anything that's painful, I think sometimes people associate when we feel pain, the automatic thing is to run away from it, try and avoid it. I don't think anybody thinks when they feel pain, oh, I should sit with it and go through it. The first thing is, oh, try and avoid it, run away from it, do anything but feel it. But when we try to not feel the pain that we're going through, it doesn't stop that pain from still coming through. That pain still comes through no matter what we try and do, whether we deny it, whether we want to suppress it and or try and distract ourselves from it. That pain has to run its course, so to speak. And once it's run its course, there's almost like a liberation or a freedom at the end of it. But when that pain can't run its course, it hangs around and becomes that bad smell. It hangs around and becomes that anger. It hangs around and becomes that bitterness. It hangs around and can almost destroy a person, really.
Mm,
And that's what I see with this poem, that if we could just sit with the pain and let it have its way, let it play out. We don't see the benefit of that because we don't want to feel the pain. We don't want to feel the loss. We don't want to live the reality. We don't want to accept the change. But if we could just live with it and let it run its course, it might not be as bad as we think it was going to be. And there might even be some benefit at the end.
yeah. Thank you so much for that. So much. I mean, we could spend all day just expanding on what you've just said there. Um, I love what you said about the predictive nature of the way the mind tries to protect us is by predicting what it thinks is coming and then trying to preempt that by responding. And I love the idea that actually, in order to protect us, when there's a sense of pain, the idea is the first instinct is to move away, draw away from it because there's almost this kind of idea that maybe we won't be able to survive the intensity of the pain. Maybe somehow it's almost like the sense that that pain would break us or something. So that first instinct is to recoil from it. Um, and I also love what you're saying there about actually sometimes then all that is doing is making things worse, even though the idea behind it is to protect us. Actually, in the
Yeah.
long term, it could be making it worse. And I think what makes this particular section and this particular area we're looking at so important in this framework is we're talking about integrating the wisdom. And part of the wisdom of grief is to understand the pain that we're experiencing, why we're experiencing that pain, and what can we learn from that pain, even in its intensity and how it feels. All that is information for us to learn from. And therefore, again, the more we run away and shy away and find clever devices to do that, then the less we're benefiting from that wisdom that comes from really
Mm-hmm.
sitting with it, understanding it, and learning from it. Yeah, I hear that. Anything else you're thinking about this?
And I suppose it depends on, I think the pain and the loss and the feelings and all that depends on who else is who's the person that what is the actual context in which the loss has taken place, because that makes a difference to how you handle what's the context. I mean, for me, as I lost my cousin this week on Monday, and
Mm,
I was almost, it sounds horrible, but I was pleased to see her go, because she was in a place that was not nice. Ending wasn't nice. So as much as I didn't like to see what she looked like and what she was going through, when the end came for her, I was very overjoyed, because I thought, you know what, at least now she can rest in some form of peace now, and her immediate family can just get on with, you know, celebrating her life, and without every day coming and looking at her deteriorating. So for me, yes, I feel the loss of my first cousin. We've grown up together, we've done a lot of things together, but I didn't like the way life was ending. And so when it did end, I felt relief for her.
mm, I hear that. I do hear that. And in some ways, there's always two senses of grief going on there, isn't there? There's the grief of loss, but there's also the grief of the loss of who she used to be compared to who she now becoming in that process of
Yeah.
maybe the illness or whatever it was that she was struggling with that led to her demise. That idea that actually there's a grief already taking place that wow, this is not the person I knew. And what is this thing doing to her that's brought her to that point? Hmm. And just looking at the piece now, seeing what else it has to say to us, really. It, and one of those things is one thing you've already talked about. Actually, by avoiding that pain, nothing is being solved, right? Nothing is being
Yeah.
solved. Nothing, because whatever is behind the pain still exists somehow. It's just waiting for you to be fully present to it, for it to do its work. Um, yeah. And there's a sense that actually pain is part of the human experience. And I know we spend all our lives trying to avoid it,
Yeah.
but it is part of the human experience. And pain has always been something that in itself is redemptive because if we look at it from a maybe purely physical, and I always, whenever we talk about pain in this context, I always remember this story. It was a news story about a young boy that could not feel pain. He could not feel pain. And you think somebody might think, oh, what a superpower that is. This person can't feel pain. Their life will be great, whatever, whatever. And then they drop in an example that, oh, if he puts his hand on a hot stove, it will burn his flesh. So he's not being saved from the consequences of that action. But the warning system that was put in place to let him know that the action or the situation he's put himself is one that induces pain, he could not benefit from that, right? So the
Yeah.
message that the pain would have to say to him to say, oh, there's something not helpful about where you've put your hand. And actually, if your hand stays there, it will continue to experience demise or damage. He did not benefit from pain telling him that. That wisdom of pain saying that's not a place to put your hand. He did not have that available to him. So therefore he suffered the consequence of that by his flesh
Yeah.
being burnt up.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, I like when you said, pain is a human experience because it is. But is it a good way to think about pain as a human experience? Because we do run away from pain. We think, oh, pain. Oh, let me go hide. Oh, no, pain. Oh, I don't want to do that. It's going to cause me too much pain afterwards. Oh, no, I don't want to. And we do everything to avoid pain. But if we just see it as, if we can accept it as I should say, that's the word. If we can accept it as a human experience, maybe we wouldn't spend so much time trying to deny it or suppress
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
We perhaps give it a bit more space to breathe through us.
No, I hear that. I really do hear that. Auntie, were you going to come in and say something here?
Good afternoon,
Good
everybody.
afternoon. Hi.
I've been struggling with my iPad for the past 3 days. Sorry to take your time. So, was it Wednesday? I was supposed to minister. I started. They said they can't. My video blank. If I'm not muted, I couldn't do it. It was a mess. So I'm planning to go and repair it. But now I'm using my phone. What I want to say about grief is it is what we cannot avoid, whether we
Mm,
like it or not.
mm,
It has to happen. I went through, I lost so many close people this year that I was thinking,
mm,
how will I get over all these things? As one is coming, another one going, another one comes, another one bouncing. Then, okay, I check myself. Where am I standing? So whether I like it or
mm,
not, I have to stand. We have to love ourselves, not to base our life on the lost. It's lost, it's lost. What we can't change it, we have to accept it. It may take
mm,
time for some people. For some people, they quickly get out of it. But it is not easy. My friend, my late friend, my neighbor said to me, he said, Eunice, I said, yeah. He said, do you know what? This grief. He said people are selfish. When they are crying, they say they can't get out of it. They say they are thinking of the person, what person is doing in their life. He said, that is why they can't get out of it. But I said, well, in my own case, when somebody is close to you, you'll be remembering all good things that has been happening between you and the person. Oh, we used to do this, we used to do that, meaning that the end has come. But you just have to do little by little. Then the most how to get out of it is to think about the good relationship that is between you and that person that you lost. Then when you remember that, then you be, little by little, you get out of it, you smile, you will remember what you used to say, what you used to do, what we used to do together, and be happy. Knowing that, okay, especially most Christian life, they will say, oh yeah, we know where she's going because he's a Christian. He has given his life to Christ. That is consolation for those people who are Christian, following Christ Jesus. So 1, 2, 3, I got over it. What do? I get over it. Even last week, I took a couple. It's a pastor. They have school. They were planning to go and do what they want to have a meeting, committee meeting or board meeting. This man slept and did not wake up. After they put all things into perspective, what they are going to do. What do we do? I remembered it was me who organized the cutting of their cake. It was a shock. So I was going through the last week. I said, this is the shoe I won that day for that so people. We can't forget totally, but we just have to make sure we have our own life to live too, and make sure we try and get over it and think of the better parts of the life of which we have together. So little by little, well, I got it over. It's not easy, but we have to make it easier because of our own life.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And there's quite a few bits in there that are value in terms of what we're talking about. This idea, acceptance is a big part of it, that this thing has happened. We can't reverse it. And then knowing that I love what you're saying, that there's two sides to it. There's, yes, something has ended, which means we will no longer be able to enjoy blah, 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 this person anymore. But actually look at all the things that have come from having known this person before. So that perspective taking that allows you to see not just one side of it, which is the loss and the end of something, but the other bit that allows you to say, well, while it lasted, look what came out of it. So that again, that helps us to begin to process, because I just want to keep in context of what today is about what people do to delay this process that you're describing, Auntie, which is looking at it, understanding, yes, it will be painful because somebody you loved or somebody you cared about or somebody you played a significant part in their life, whatever. And to begin that process what leads you to that point of acceptance, where you can then begin to process and get perspective that allows you to begin to get more comfortable with the idea that that person is no longer here. So it's that idea that how do it, so Auntie, what you're describing almost feels like you're not afraid of that process of considering what does this mean now that this person is no longer here. But like some people, literally, for them, even getting to that point is a struggle. And then they begin to come up with different ways in which to not have to face that reality, in which to not have to accept that reality. And those are some of the things we'll be looking at today. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Anything else for you on that, Claudette, before I move to the next piece?
I think that's it. I think that's it really for that one.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to read the next piece, which is called Coping. I reckon I need a new way of coping. The way of old was not coping at all. More of a cover-up than a cure-all. This way of being always needs propping, sagging under the weight of constant expectations. The hard slug from not feeling enough, always needing a way of coping. So I'm going to read that again, coping. I reckon I need a new way of coping. The way of old was not coping at all. More of a cover-up than a cure-all. This way of being always needs propping, sagging under the weight of constant expectations, the hard slog from not feeling enough, always needing a way of coping.
Hmm.
You know, the first thing that came to my mind was, what is the difference between coping and managing?
Good question. What comes to mind when you reflect
No,
on
that's no, that's the first thing. That's the only thing that's come up. That's the first thing when I saw the title and you started to read it. What is the difference between coping and managing?
That's a good question. Auntie, do you have a view?
Uh,
What is your sense of the difference between managing something or trying to cope with something?
to me, I think it sounds almost the same meaning.
Okay, I hear that. I hear that.
Managing to cope, coping.
Right.
Okay, managing, it makes a difference now. You are managing,
Okay.
you are managing, but you are not comfortable. You are still
Okay.
managing, trying to, because today you can be happy, tomorrow you'll be sad again. You are managing. But
Mm-hmm.
coping, when you,
Mm-hmm.
it means that you stand strong and you are ready to cope with
Okay.
it. That I will take it as it comes. That is that. You are,
That is interesting because my take is the opposite. My
mm,
take is actually, but this is all words, right? Words, it depends on what meaning you attach to words. But the way I see coping,
mm,
coping almost feels like you're just barely making it through. You're just wanting to stay in the game, basically. Whereas
mm,
managing, to me, has the same element, but then it goes, and I suppose maybe it's the way we use it in our culture, actually, now coming to what you're saying, Auntie. I
mm,
think in our culture, we use managing. But if you
mm,
think about a management in a business
mm,
context, someone who is managing a business concept is not just coping with the job, they're actually understanding what resources they have. They are deploying those resources in the way required, and they're able to respond to what's happening. So that's why they're called managers, because they're
mm,
there to manage the workflow to ensure that it delivers the outcome. Whereas if someone is just coping in their role, they're basically just doing whatever it takes to stay in the role and be there. So they're lacking that ability then to go beyond the coping into thriving, right? So that is where I see the difference. So I
mm.
don't know if, like I said, I'm not saying what you said is not correct, but it just depends on how people interpret those
Another
words.
dimension. Mm,
Yeah, exactly.
mm,
Anything else from this piece?
mm. Move. So more of a cover up than a kill all.
Hmm.
Hmm. Cover up.
Or what's that saying to you?
Is he pretending to be? I don't know.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is this about the different ways in which we
More of
just it's just like the different ways, the cover up, the
mm,
the the propping up, the cover up,
Yeah.
mm,
the
Yeah.
always needing is
Yes.
these are different devices. I don't know if devices do it, different devices of carrying the grief and different ways we use to carry the grief that we feel.
Yeah. It's different ways of, yeah, you're right. And it's within the context of what we're discussing, right?
mm,
The
mm,
the things that people use to help them just stay in the game and stay there,
mm,
but is not actually in itself solving anything or embracing anything or learning from anything. Because the whole idea of this grief journey is to integrate wisdom from it, right? And the next bit is we're going to embrace our new identity as someone who is now different because of what's happened. And the
mm,
final piece is finding a purpose in your grief. So these are the things what these coping mechanisms that people employ that stop them from taking that journey. And therefore, they're almost stuck in their grief process because it's not bringing them to the place of acceptance, which then opens the door to all the other things. So coping in this context is like, I mean, let's take a simple example, and our next piece is going to talk about that to a certain degree. Some people would throw themselves into their work rather than grieve honestly and accept that they're
Yeah.
going through a grieving process. So they'll try and distract themselves by doing even more work. They'll get very busy. They'll do all that in the hope that if they do enough of that, then that pain from the grief, they won't have to deal with it. They won't have to sit with it. They won't have to allow themselves to experience it and then let it pass through them and learn from it. So they then, so this is coping in that context that whatever device, and the device is a good word actually, Claudette, because there's different kinds of devices. And how you know it is that is because you keep needing it, right? And it's not solving the underlying issue. And actually, you can still, when
Okay.
it's not in effect, feel the weight of the thing that you're running away from, right? So that's and certain some people, as a result of grief, end up in addictions of different kinds simply because of that exactly, which is not necessarily solving anything, and in some cases, is something you said earlier, Claudette, is actually making things worse.
Okay. Now we
Anything
got a
else?
clearer understanding of the difference of what coping, the difference between coping and managing now. It's crystal clear now.
Uh, So I'm going to read the next piece because I think it gives us an example. So that's why I'm doing that. So we can still go back to the coping piece once we kind of hear what this has to say. This
Okay.
piece is called Chemical C. My brain is drowning in chemicals, chemicals that flatter to deceive, peddling temporary reprieve. On to the next time, held deeper underwater longer, till I'm choking for another fix. My pain is secondary. This nightmare feels permanent. I'm going to read that again, Chemical C. My brain is drowning in chemicals, chemicals that flatter to deceive, peddling temporary reprieve. On to the next time, held deeper underwater longer, till I'm choking for another fix. My pain is secondary. This nightmare feels permanent. What are you hearing?
Let me offer this. Now, this sounds like when you rely on too many all the devices for coping, that it becomes so toxic that it's not even the grief that is not just the grief you're now coping with. You're coping with the devices that you've been relying on because you're so hooked on that, almost like on those devices that you're coping with that, and then but the grief is still there because you've not dealt with it. So you're still coping with that. So you now got the two together, which then makes everything more toxic, which
Yeah,
is
I hear
harder
that.
for you, which is harder for you to deal with.
Yeah. I really felt that as you were describing that. I felt that deep here, that sense of,
Because it's
yeah,
very hard to separate because then it becomes their two becomes enmeshed and
yeah,
therefore very difficult to separate. And I suppose that's how sometimes people find themselves in that place of despair and go on to do desperate things.
mm, I hear that. Yeah, I really felt that. Yeah. As someone who struggled with different kinds of addiction, I'm kind of familiar with this idea of almost drowning in something. And
Yeah,
like you say, that the thing that you got into it to try and support you with actually still there. You haven't dealt with it. And then you're kind of then struggling with, and yeah, no, I hear that. And anything from you on this one?
It's looking like when we are going through some difficult period,
Mm.
We are trying to cope and this and that. Then something bigger, serious, more serious than that came upon me, making me to think that what I think is a huge become smaller than what I'm facing. So, meaning that I rather take it as it comes and put what I think is heavy in my heart. I put it aside. Then I face something that is bigger than that is coming. So what do I do? Is than to make sure that I will be able to stand and cope with it all together, not to not to mess up my own brain when something is too much, when something is too big to cope. You'll be wondering, which stage am I in? Which stage am I in now? When things are
Yeah.
Mm.
I hear that. And that is almost the other side. Once you come up the other side of this and you've really seen through what's going on, then that would be a good way to begin to process and understand, okay, two things going on here. There's the pain itself, and then there's the thing I'm doing to avoid the pain, right? And this ties back in, and that's why I thought let's hold these two together in a way. So one of the ways people cope is using things that distract their brain or numb them so they can't feel it. So it's the equivalent. You go to so let's take for example a physical injury, right? So I've been running or whatever, and I've hurt my knee or I walk my Achilles tendon, I've torn it or something like that. There's pain there. So now I could decide that the pain there is telling me something is wrong, right? So I can go to a doctor and they can tell me, yeah, that's torn. They've scanned it. Something's wrong there, right? Then I could decide, okay, give me painkillers, right? So I don't feel the pain, so I can continue running on the leg that's got a torn Achilles. Do you see where we're going with this? So,
Yeah.
so, so I've got pain that's telling me something is wrong somewhere. I could decide to deal with what's wrong, right? Work on that, fix it, experience it, fix it, keep checking in on it and letting the pain tell me when it's now better or not better or whatever, doing that. Or I could decide to numb the pain so I can continue to do the thing that created the pain in the first place and thereby even making that worse. And here's the point, and this is what this point is pointed to, that actually now every time is almost you need more of the drug. You need a bigger dose of the drug now to help you and then eventually you get used to. For example, one of the people I went to watch this Michael Jackson film recently, and his hair caught fire. He started using painkillers to manage the pain that came from what he went through. Eventually, those killed him, right? One way or the other, because he became addicted to those things, and it was a fatal dose of that eventually ended his life. So it's the idea that actually when you try and use chemicals or things to distract, numb, or manipulate your brain so you're not experiencing the reality of what the pain is trying to tell you and trying to strengthen. So going back to my example about my Achilles, actually what I need to do with my Achilles is number one, I need to give it time to rest. Then I need to start building up small exercises and physiotherapy that will strengthen it. And then I need to add exercises that will make that muscle stronger. So when I put the same amount of pressure on it next time, actually it can cope better. So that is me using the pain to get better so that I can continue to live a life that
Mm.
might have a better quality. But if the choice I make is to say, forget that, I want to continue to do and live the way I'm now or keep things the same and keep doing it, and I don't want this pain to get in my way, then I start numbing the pain. And then I start inducing. So all we're doing is tricking our brain to ignore the pain so that we can keep continuing to do the thing that created the pain in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts come through as I kind of talk that through or look at the pieces? Any of those two pieces actually together? I think one of the key elements here is to understand that when you revert to using coping mechanisms to numb your brain to what's actually happening, you're not solving anything and you could be creating more problems, I think is the point. And actually, I think our next piece will now tell us the thing that will help us to begin to see that from a different perspective. So I'm going to put that in there and then we'll look at it. This piece is called Unbreakable. Get out was the shout. The house is on fire. Save yourself from the funeral pyre. Life is getting hot. Will destruction transpire? You feel the heat and stare at defeat. Seems like who you are is about to deplete. Still you are here, the untouchable dweller. Life force that lived on since the break of dawn. Made of indestructible love, you'll weather the storm and be here to tell the story when it's all said and done. I'm going to read that again. Unbreakable. Get out was the shout. The house is on fire. Save yourself from the funeral pyre. Life is getting hot. Will destruction transpire? You feel the heat and stare at defeat. Seems like who you are is about to deplete. Still, you are here, the untouchable dweller. Life force that's lived on since the break of dawn. Made of indestructible love, you'll weather the storm and be here to tell the story when it's all said and done.
This is very complex poem. Frank.
Hey, tell me what you're seeing that's making it feel complex.
Just the whole thing is very complex.
What
Something. There's one word that's coming up in me. And that's the word resilient.
Okay.
Resilient.
Okay. Yeah. I hear that. I hear that. Anything else?
And then the other word that's coming up is deny.
Okay. So denying what context are you seeing there?
Denying reality.
Okay.
The house is on fire, but you're still sitting there thinking, "Oh, it's not really on fire."
That's an interesting one.
You're feeling the heat, but you say it's not hot.
Okay. I hear that. No, there is that. But yeah, I love that. That's why I love doing this. People see so many different things in these pieces.
Yeah, the house is on fire, but
Yeah, I hear that. And I kind of give a breakdown at some point, but I want to hear what Auntie has to say on this one. Auntie, do you have any views, thoughts on this?
Yeah, the first paragraph, get out to it's a shout.
Yeah.
It just bring my brain to my neighbor.
Okay.
Which the house was about to be on fire. So the bell was ringing. I went to the door. I knocked. I didn't know what she did. Maybe she was cooking something and fire breaks. She said, Eunice, don't disturb me. I'm okay. I said, you can't be okay. Fire. We are hearing fire. Then I went to call the fire brigade. They all came. But all the same, as she was still saying there is still nothing. A lot is going on that they have to break the door. I don't know what is in her brain when she said I shouldn't worry, there's no problem. I can't, that's what I'm trying to think now. When we heard that shout, what is in my brain that I will say I'm okay? Right. I can't understand that. That is how I was talking this first paragraph.
Yeah.
What can be going on in anybody's brain when you hear that shout?
No, and that's a perfect correlation to what we were saying. When when something is interfered with your brain's ability to perceive the reality of what's going on, because I'm not saying this is what a neighbor did, but I mean, when we go back to this chemical C idea, if you're using things or devices that are altering how your brain is perceiving that reality, then your response to it wouldn't be the response that would be expected, right? So the idea that, and that's why it's probably not a good idea. It's best to sit with the experience of what's taking place so you can actually understand and see and experience it and learn from the pain that's telling you, okay, something is not right or something is. And when it comes to grief, I think I have to be careful here. I'm not saying that every time you experience pain from grief, something is not right. It could be all that means for you is you're learning and understanding how dear and how important and how precious the object of your grief is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the point is you sit there and feel that pain and let that pain speak to you to say, this amount of pain you're feeling is because this, and the other. And accept that, okay, this has happened. And then, Auntie, what you were saying earlier is let's now take perspective and go, yes, if I reflect only on what I'm losing, this is very painful. But if I take what I'm losing and balance it with what I've gained, then this is bearable, right? So then we begin to work through that. So thank you very much for that, actually. Anything else on this before I kind of maybe give my spin on it?
So, made up indescribable love, you will
Yes.
weather the storm
Mm-hmm.
and be here to tell the story.
Yeah.
That is a good one. It is when you think of the joyful side of it, you will carry on.
Yeah.
You will weather it up. You say, well, then you will live to tell the story of how you get out of it, and then you'll be able to encourage others.
I
When
love that.
those who are in the same shoe with you, you say, mine was so tough, but this is how I did it. This is what happened. This is it. Then you'll be able you take the pain to encourage others, to counsel others. That is that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And that's the finding purpose in your grief, isn't it? It's that bit where you begin to then realize the experience you've just had is a testimony to what's possible and how enduring we are as humans. And this takes us right back to the beginning of this bit. If you remember, Claudette, when we were talking about this idea that when the brain tries to predict what this is going to do to you, it almost feels like you're not going to survive it, right? Especially if it's something very deep, somebody very personal, very close to you. You always think, how am I going to survive? It feels like you can't survive that experience, right? And that's what that first bit is the predictive nature of the brain of how bad this is going to be. And this almost sense that, can you actually afford to sit with this? Because it could break you. Therefore, now you begin to employ every coping mechanism to not have to sit with it, which then creates its own issues and stops you from processing what is still there waiting to be processed anyway, right? So the first bit here is really talking about the predictive nature on the brain and how sometimes very inaccurate it is, because it almost positions us as people who don't have what it takes to survive things that are happening, because it just at that moment it feels so painful that it feels like that's what it's always going to be, that's how it's always going to be. I can remember our last session where Mama Kate was here. She was talking about how it took her years to come to a place where she could even begin to contemplate the idea of life can go on without the loss of her daughter. It's like she that's how painful it felt when it first started, that she couldn't. And I go back to something you said earlier, Claudia, about then that whole processing of it turning out into anger and all those emotions really morphing into other kinds of emotions that are coming out, because you're just not at that place where you're able to accept that this has actually happened and this should have happened or could have happened and stuff like that. So that first bit really is about that. Auntie, were you going to say something into that?
Yes, I wanted to share my experience about when something happened to me.
Okay.
If it happens that I was so hurt that I thinking I'm losing my mind. It went to that extent, losing my mind, to the extent that when I used a set of clothes that I wanted to wash, put in the bathroom, then I will have my bath, do everything, wear the same dirty clothes. I would say, what is making me happy that I'm changing clothes? Isn't that the beginning of depression? Then I came to realize, I said, what if I pass somebody if I just come to my senses, if I'm smelling, they will say, what's wrong with this woman? And she'd say, and those who know, then I begin to think of those who have been counseling, who will be talking to them. Those who have been doing that, I begin to think of what I'm useful to others. Would I be able to do that again? Then I came back to my senses. And that is how I just get over it. Remembering that I'm standing in gap for some people. If I do this to my brain, if I do this, if I'm on this situation, how am I going to carry on that duty? Then it come back to my senses. And I said, no, let me put this aside and carry on with life.
I hear that. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. And the invitation very much here is to say that when something feels so intense and so painful, and it feels like you wonder how you can survive it, this piece here is just to assure you that it may feel that way, but that's not the truth of it, that you can actually survive it. And if should a small door open where you're willing to start accepting what has happened and begin to envisage that there could be life after that event or life after that loss, then it begins to open the door for that transformation to occur. And then you will be there to now, like you've just done that, Auntie, haven't you? You now live to tell that story, right? So it's to help people realize that deep within the essence of who we are able to handle more than it feels like we could when we're trying to predict the worst case scenario. And that's really the invitation, is to recognize that we as human beings are innately resilient if we allow ourselves to take the perspective and focus on the things that could come from that experience that will help us be even better or more grounded or whatever that may be. Anything else on this? Right, I'm going to put the final piece in. This piece is called Time to Heal. Time to heal. I possess neither the power for healing nor the acumen for teaching, as some have acclaimed to me. I am the space within which these exist. Healing and learning are the preserve of your intelligent design. I am time, your ticket to ride. I'll read that again. Time to heal. I possess neither the power for healing nor the acumen for teaching, as some have acclaimed to me. I am the space within which these exist. Healing and learning are the preserve of your intelligent design. I am time, your ticket to ride. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Like healing is a process.
Yeah, I hear that.
Healing is a process, not something to be controlled.
I hear that. Yeah.
And sometimes all we need is time for the process to play itself out. And for us to just allow that process to be played out rather than trying to control.
Yeah, I hear that. And I add to that, rather than trying to control or run away from, right?
Yeah.
Because that just expands the amount of time over which, I mean, it's not happening basically. While you're distracting, do whatever it is, it's not happening. Yeah, thank you for that. Anything else?
Mm.
Auntie, anything for you on this one?
Processing, neither the
Mm-hmm.
power of healing. Mm. When we are processing, if we stay long on this processing and processing, the time is ticking, is going. The
Mm-hmm.
earlier we come to realization that this healing must take place,
Mm-hmm.
we gather ourselves and let it pass.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will stand stagnant on this grief.
Yeah. I hear that. And if we were to consider some of the things we said already, not only, I mean, stagnant might even be the best you get from it. The worst you get from it is actually things get worse because the things you now turn to avoid having to heal from that thing now add their own problems to it, from which you then have to come out of to then begin the process that, so your right time then is progressing as that is going. Um, Anything else of this piece before I speak to it?
Yeah, I agree with what my lady has said. Because
Hmm.
I just think as we know, everybody grieves in everybody's different. Everybody, the way people cope or manage grief or experience grief is so different. And I suppose to some extent it depends on how devastating the grief is. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some things that happen to some people that it would take years for them to get over.
Mm.
For some
Hmm.
people, it might be something that's happened to them that, within a few weeks or even 1 week, they're carrying on and with their life. And yes, they can acknowledge what's happened. But I also it depends on the mindset. Where are you?
Mm.
What do you understand grief to be, and where are you in yourself?
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
yeah, where are
Hmm.
you in yourself? What is your mindset, and where are you in yourself in order to say how long how your healing is going to be?
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's
I can say for one, right? To some extent, my healing after a horrible stroke has been I acknowledged the part that my God has played in healing me.
hmm.
But I also acknowledge the kind of person God has made me, and how God has made me. And God has given me certain ways of thinking and seeing things that also I was able to help myself as well. And now I'm able to share some of the ways in which I have found healing to help other people who's coming out, who's on their stroke journey. They can use some of the ways that I have used or consider some of the ways I have used to help to understand their healing. But everybody's healing is different, but it is about your mindset and how you see it, you know,
Yeah. And,
you
and,
know.
and, and yeah, thank you so much for that. And what I want to really pull out about that, I'm conscious of time because we haven't got much of it left, is actually what you've just spoken to there is the whole reason why we're doing this series. Is because most of what protracts the amount of time it takes people to heal through grief is that lack of understanding of what's actually going on, lack of understanding of what is helpful and what's not helpful that makes it. I mean, it will take what it takes, but so for example, what we're dealing with today, if someone then goes and gets caught in maybe alcohol addiction, drug addiction, work addiction, shopaholic addiction, whatever else they might end up doing in order to try and cope with this grief that they don't think that they can handle if they were to sit with it, then that adds to the journey, that adds to the thing, and that's extra bits to work and deal with. Now, if we are to help people understand the journey of grief, help them understand what's happening. So if someone actually makes a conscious choice that I don't think I want to start dealing with this yet, I'm going to throw myself into my work. I'm not condemning such a person. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. That's their choice. But what I would like to hope is that something like this allows them to see that that's what they're doing, right? Allows them to see that that's what's taking place. Allows them to understand potential impact of that. And as long as they're happy with that, then let them continue it. But at least they understand what's going on. They understand what's taking place. And should they consciously make a different choice, they know that they're making that different choice in another. And they also understand the potential impact of that choice they're making. This piece in itself really is talking about that people say this word, time is a healer. And it sounds good. But time in itself is not a healer, right? Because as we've determined, if the choice you make is actually to distract yourself so that you don't begin the healing process, then time is not doing any healing. Actually, over time, it's taking longer for you to get to the point of healing, right? Because if we accept that healing begins when you're able to accept what is taking place, maybe believe that you can handle sitting with it to process it, understand it, learn from it, and find purpose in it, then all of a sudden now, healing, and this is what the piece says, healing and learning are the preserve of your intelligent design. So in other words, if you allow what is taking place to occur, actually those things in themselves will begin to give you learning, and the healing process will, because you are designed to self-heal in that way. Do you see what I'm saying? If you sit with it, learn from it, the design of who you are will lead you to healing. You are not doing the healing. The healing is taking place, but you're creating the environment that allows that healing to occur, which will occur over time. So time is not the healer. Time is what gives you the opportunity. Because if you're dead, none of those can happen anyway. So if you're still here and time is there, then you have the opportunity, if you're willing to be present with what's with you, present in the pain, present in the grief, then naturally healing will occur, learning will occur. And you can come out from the end of it, someone who's more grounded, more wise, and someone who now sees themselves in a new light that allows them to now find purpose in what they've experienced to be a blessing to other people. So that basically is the gist of it.
Fantastic.
So I'd like to take final words from so what are you leaving here, Claudette, with today?
It's just a wonderful space. It's just a wonderful privilege to be on this platform. It's just wonderful. You know, it's just so wonderful. And even this week, I've had to cope with my cousin passing. What I've learned from this platform is, it's been very, very, very useful. Very, very useful in helping me to understand my feelings and what's going on. And when I have to be among the other members of the family who are really, really struggling to come to terms with the loss of their mother or their sister and all that, I feel that I'm better placed to be able to support them because of what I've learned on this platform.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much for
that's what I'm taking away today.
thank you so much for acknowledging that. I wanted to acknowledge your contribution to that as well, because we all co-create the space, right? It's not one person spouting their wisdom necessarily. Thank you very much for that. Auntie, what are you leaving with today?
Yes, I'll be missing a lot, I'm sure. Because when you have something you bottle in your mind, by the time you come to this program, everything will be shaken up. Then you'll be rejoicing to depart. It's very good. We are enjoying it. What I will take from now, my perspectives to lives has changed. That no matter circumstances I'm going through or situations, I will not allow the present situation to take my joy or future away from me. Looking forward that I will get over this, I will continue to joy. Yeah. That is what I'm holding on now.
Thank you so much. And I'm leaving with the acknowledgement that this is important work to do, and glad to have been given the privilege to do it. It's not the first thing I would have thought that I would be, but once I got convinced that it was something to be addressed, then I gave myself to it, and I'm so glad that I did, and I'm glad that you're all getting this value and also adding and helping co-create the value that comes from this. So whatever your weekend entails, enjoy, and until the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Take care.